Hey look, we made a thing because we wanted to. Thompson, our brilliant VFX artist, sent this concept over to us because it was something he wanted to try out. So we were like, yeah, okay. So we popped our camera on a dolly, put Justin in a woman's baseball tee, set him in front of a green screen, then took 4 small LED lights on both sides of Justin, 2 set to a pink hue, 2 set to a bluish hue, and then pretended we were at a rave.
Don't stop now. Keep going. Don't stop. Now go.
This practical element will help him feel more grounded inside the effect once we get there, as it's actually interacting with his body. But then we hit record, did our move, and we had our shot. Because that's how it works, and there was really no reason for me to explain that to you, but now you know. If you were thinking, hey, how did they record that with the magic box? You. In After Effects, we'll drop our footage into a new comp, duplicate it, and hide the second one for now. On the first layer, we want to get a camera track, so we'll right-click, track and stabilize, and track camera. We'll select a point on the ceiling, which remains there throughout the entirety of the shot, right-click, create a null and camera, create a solid layer to use as a matte, and make it 3D, lining up the position to roughly match Justin's location and scale it up to fill the frame. Hide the visibility, and on the solid, we'll draw a basic mask around Justin, boosting the feather slightly, then keyframe the mask path to move with him throughout the timeline if needed, but the 3D track does most of the work. Now set the footage plate to use the solid as an alpha matte. Because of the low camera angle, Justin's head goes beyond the green screen, but because he has fairly short hair, we can roto this. So using a roto mask on the solid, we'll draw at the area where the ceiling begins, set it to subtract, increase the feather, and again, keyframe this throughout the shot. Using key light on the first plate layer, we're going to select the green and go through a few of the settings to get a solid key. We have multiple keying tutorials linked below if you want more steps on how to do that. For any remaining green, we'll use an advanced spill suppressor and change the method to ultra. Next, we'll unhide the duplicated plate, which will be a roto of Justin's head. Double-clicking the layer brings us into its own window. We'll move to the final frame as his head is closer and in front of more of the ceiling. Then, with the roto brush tool, we'll select Justin, use the refine edge tool for selecting the hair to get finer details, and we'll play through until roto brush has completed the shot. Now we'll jump over to the comp to check the edges, and we can alter some of the settings here if needed. For example, some of the creases in the green screen are showing with the refined section, so we can increase the contrast value to crush these. Once you're happy, go back to the layer window and freeze the effect to bake it in. Next, duplicate the solid, delete the first mask, and set the roto brush Justin layer to use the new solid as an alpha inverted matte so that only his head area is visible. In the mask dropdown, you can expand the edges to hide any seams between the two plates, copy and paste the advanced spill suppressor to the roto plate, then duplicate the camera. With a camera and all of our layers below selected, pre-compose as our key. For the background, we'll use the sky time-lapse stock footage, placing it at the bottom of the comp. We'll make it a 3D layer and push it way back into the distance, scaling up and repositioning to get a placement that we like. Because this is a time-lapse footage, we'll stretch the time to slow it down and check the frame blending twice. Using a curves effect, we'll lower the overall brightness and then a hue and saturation set to the yellows, expanding the range so we can alter hue, saturation, and lightness to make it a bit less distracting. This superpower effect is created by building up a variety of stock assets, and for that, we're going to be using our Infinity Pack. That includes energy, smoke, embers, and more, which again is going to be up to 80% off this Black Friday. Link in the notes for all that. To begin, we'll double click on the chaotic 1 asset to open it in its own window. Because we want the energy to have already begun by the start of the shot, we'll scroll forward a couple of seconds and set an in point so that the asset starts at this frame. We'll drop it into the comp beneath our key layer and set the blending mode to screen. Move the anchor point to center the energy and make it a 3D layer, scaling, rotating, and repositioning to get this, which already looks like fast energy flowing off of Justin. Using Video Copilot's free Color Vibrance plugin, we'll select a blue color, lower vibrance and brightness, and copy this for later. Because we shot with practical pinkish and blue lights, we know we'll be varying between those 2 tones for most of the asset. We'll duplicate this asset a couple of times, altering their start frames for variety and changing rotation, scale, position, and color until we get this. For some closer emitting energy, we'll next use the Energy Wave 1 asset, once again choosing a new start frame to where it's already begun, setting to screen, making 3D, positioning close to Justin and pasting the color effect, changing to a red and lowering vibrance. Using multiple duplicates, we'll place it around his torso and arms, changing the starting point for each so that there are no visual duplicates. We also changed the color vibrance settings for some, scaled down the arm assets, and using a mask, we'll subtract this area showing under his arm. With 2 new duplicates, we'll place at the sides of his legs, change the color settings, and then swap out the asset with Energy Wave 2 by holding Alt while dragging and letting go of the file over these layers. Then we'll speed this up by 50% to match the fast pace of the others. But let's pause right there and thank today's sponsor. We've been using Licht for a while now, and it's pretty amazing the level of songs that we're able to get at such an insanely cheap price. I won't say what that price is for us because each channel is different depending on your subscribers and so on, but I will say that ours is well under 50 bucks, and that is pretty crazy. We have reached out to labels for use of songs in the past for Film Riot and short films, and the lowest I was ever quoted for something like that was $5,000. But Licht has figured out how to make this affordable. They've partnered with the labels and have gathered music from the biggest artists in the world, including popular tracks like Ghost from Justin Bieber, Unholy by Sam Smith, and Fix You by Coldplay, and using that recognizable music is always a big win. It's a great way to connect with your audience and grow your channel, or to punctuate the joke, which we do all the time. They also have the biggest music catalog for creators with 150,000 stock music tracks for any situation, and access to those massive artists to take your production quality up while being protected from copyright claims. The stock licenses can also be used on any social platform with unlimited usage, and they have solid search filters and hundreds of curated playlists. And by supporting Licht, you are supporting the artists as well, and the more creators that use the platform, the more labels Licht can sign on. So sign up to Licht and use our link for 14 days free stock music and 50% off your first mainstream chart track. And that is a limited time offer, so be sure to jump on that now.
And now, on with the show.
Jumping right back into the effect, for behind Justin's head, we're going to use a Spirit Flame asset going through the same process again, then duplicating and replacing with another Spirit Flame using a different color. We'll now duplicate the camera and move it above the last asset, then select all of these, pre-composing as energy back. Set to screen and then duplicate both the energy and the key moving together. On the new key, use a simple choker and increase the value to eat away at the edges a bit. Add a fast blur to soften slightly, and use a vector blur effect, choosing the duplicate energy pre-comp and boosting the value. We'll be using this as a matte, so it doesn't matter that it's affecting all of Justin. Set the energy duplicate to use the new key as an alpha inverted matte, pre-compose these two together as energy back matte, and hide visibility. Now move energy back above our key layer, and to get a chromatic pinch look, we'll use Red Giant's chromatic displacement effect. Increase the displace amount and spread, changing the spread direction. Either way will shift to a warm or blue chromatic fringe. Use a set matte effect, choosing our key, selecting effects and masks, then inverting. On the key layer, we're going to again use a chromatic displacement effect, this time choosing the energy back matte pre-comp and lowering the soften and amount. What this does is reveal some of the energy in front of him in various areas, so it feels like it's emitting from different depths rather than all flat and behind. And the reason we have the energy above Justin's layer instead of below is that we can use a glow effect and have the radius roll off over his layer rather than be obscured behind him. Beneath Justin, we'll create an adjustment layer and again use a chromatic displacement effect, selecting the energy back matte and boosting the amount. Because our background doesn't have that much detail, this might not be as noticeable, but other backgrounds could show it more clearly. But now we want to add some energy in front of Justin. Our pack has a bunch of these flow assets, which will work nicely. For the length of our shot, we want to create a loop, so we'll drop flow 1 into its own comp, and in the comp settings, increase the timecode duration, set the layer to screen, and duplicate, moving along the timeline so that it overlaps the previous and creates a continuous loop. Do this multiple times to fill the runtime, then like before, we will alt drag and drop different assets over some to replace, giving us this. We'll do the same thing for flow 6 on its own comp, replacing some of the duplicates with flow 7 and 8 to get this. In our main comp, we'll drop in flow 1 and like before, set to screen, move in the timeline, make 3D, change position, scale, rotation, add color, and this time we'll use a vector blur with the direction center setting to kind of smear the detail a bit. With the duplicate, we'll place on the other side, move in the timeline, and change the color. With the new camera duplicate, pre-comp these together as energy front, set back to screen, duplicate the displace adjustment layer, and move below the new energy comp, selecting it as the displacement map and changing some of the settings to get this. To add energy flowing from his hand, we'll drop in the looping flow 6 comp going through the same process again, this time adding a chromatic displacement with a low amount and using a bulge effect, scaled up and placed at the emitting location, changing the height and taper radius to add a curved flow to the energy for this area. Then a vector blur again with the boosted direction center. Duplicating this, we'll move to the other hand, changing the timeline placement and the color. Pre-comp these with another camera as energy hands, and with the duplicate adjustment layer, change the displacement map to the new comp, and this time to add a bit of a smear, we'll use a vector blur set to perpendicular, using the energy hand comp as the map, boosting amount and map softness. We'll move these below the front energy and displacement. And on Justin's key layer, we'll use a curves effect to add brightness and lift the shadows a bit since he's surrounded by bright glowing energy. To add brighter light interaction in selected areas, we can duplicate the curves and boost the highlights. Then, using masks drawn around different parts, we can go to the effects dropdown and click this plus next to the new curves to isolate the effect to Justin within the mask. After we've drawn a few, we'll feather and keyframe the path throughout the shot. To add some smoke atmosphere to the scene, we'll be using some of the full screen smoke assets. We'll choose a start frame and drop one into the comp, making 3D, finding the right placement, and then with a new adjustment layer, we'll set it to Lumimat using the smoke asset. Add a fast box blur and really boost the amount. Our smoke asset is faint at this point of the timeline, so we'll use a curves effect on the smoke to boost the brightness, making the adjustment layer more visible. We'll also use a curves on the adjustment to brighten slightly and use a boosted hue and saturation as if the colors from the energy are spreading through the smoke. We did this a few more times with different smoke assets and duplicates of the adjustment layer until we had a variety of different depths of smoke like this. With a new adjustment layer, we'll use Red Giant's optical glow and another duplicate tweaking the settings and making it more blue before lowering layer opacity. For the final steps to complete the look, we built up some lens assets from our vision pack, as well as some customized lens bokeh using the same techniques we showed in our Force Lightning tutorial earlier this year. Then we added a chromatic aberration, some handheld camera movement, plus a Dutch just by keyframing the rotation and scale, then a final color grade to complete, giving us this. And obviously, you can change the look with different backgrounds or adding glows to the eyes, changing colors, using different assets, or add more. For example, we decided to drop in some of the Wisp energy assets to give some plasma-style accents, as well as using a number of Ember assets from the Infinity Pack to add some texture to the superpower or give a more magical vibe. But there you have it, our superhero effect, all made with assets from our store, triumdigital.com, which again, we have our massive Black Friday sale starting on the 24th at 12 a.m. CST, where you can get all these assets borderline free. So don't forget to mark your calendars and be there for that. But until next time, don't forget to write, shoot, edit, repeat.
See you later. Ta-ta.